All right. I'd like to reconvene the meeting for the St. Mary's County Board of Education for Wednesday, June 28th, 2017. And we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And with that, may I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move approval of the agenda as presented.
I have a second.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, shake things up a bit. Roma's worried about which way I'm going to start, so I will start with board reports this time. As many of you know, Sandra Battle is retiring after 15 years of service on Friday. So, as a thank you, should we make her parade across?
Yes.
Oh my
With a
God.
We don't have like a.
You're just going to parade with here. Make sure you hit all the new cameras.
Right, yeah, all that, and then, yeah.
Congratulations, you enjoy it. Thank you. So here is don't put yourself on the sign. A card, flowers, thank you very much. Thanks for all the help. I mean,
You're welcome.
kind of guided us through just about everything, kept us in check, even though when we don't turn in our expense reports,
Yeah.
Board reports.
But just thank you.
And we make all these changes to the agenda at the last minute. So, but thank you very much. Enjoy. Make the most of every minute of it. Okay. All right, Roma. Now I'm going back to you. Yep.
So earlier this month, I attended the Relay for Life event at the fairgrounds. And for those of you who don't know, the Relay for Life event is just an event where schools and different organizations locally come together and, walk and raise money for the organization from 4 p.m. to midnight. It used to be from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., but they realized that, it hurt students with their school schedules because it was still during school. But it was a great event because we got to see a lot of different schools, elementary, middle, and high, raise a lot of money in creative ways. Some of them did games, some of them did like face paint, and others, participated in the Miss Relay competition where guys dressed up as girls and paraded around asking for money throughout the event. So it was a very fun event, and it was great to see local partners and students working together for a good cause.
I had the opportunity to attend a meeting at MABE recently in which we went through the bills that had passed the legislature that will have an impact on the school system. It was about 6 hours worth of information poured into me, and I was able to provide my colleagues with the information we need to move forward in terms of what policies we'll need to be re-examining or creating, and some deadlines that we'll have to meet. And I found it really interesting and very helpful, so appreciate it, and it will be a continuing piece as we go forward.
I attend the Board of County Commissioners meeting where two of our students, Alex and Ashley Williams, who are founders of the program Sending Smiles. The commissioners officially recognize them for their hard work in bringing postcards of hope to sick children and their families. So far, and they started this program when they were in elementary school at Letty Marshall Dent. One student is at ChapterCon, a freshman, and the other one is just starting, Margaret Brent. So far, they have sent out 35,000 cards of hope to children and their families, and they were recognized for this outstanding service. While I was there, another one of our students was recognized, and we didn't know she was going to be recognized, for raising money for Special Olympics. She raised, was it $30,000?
No, a little over.
3,400. Okay, that was a lot. But she raised this money for Special Olympics, and also she is the founder of a program called Dress Because, and it sells at deep discount evening wear for prom attendees who cannot afford it. And so she was recognized for that. So if anybody has gowns or formal wear that they don't need, all three of the high schools accept donations. So you can donate your gowns and go through your closet, clean them out, and the schools will gladly appreciate having those. So those were two of our students who was recognized, and that student is a graduate of Chaptacon High School, 2017. So she was recognized as well. So our students are doing wonderful things in the community, and that's a testament to their parents, the community, the school system, and the teachers who teach character education to teach them that, you know, it is good to give back. And that's what our students are doing. Thank you.
I'm just going to add real quickly on the Sending Smiles. Pretty much every elementary, middle, and high school students also participated in the Sending Smiles campaign. Whether the students did the postcards during homeroom. I know Margaret Brent during their exploratory time, they had that as one of the
Breakout
places,
sessions.
right, breakout sessions that you could go to. So both of the parents of those students, the Williams, are both teachers within the system. So it truly is a full-on community effort, you know, both within the community and within the school system. So yeah, there was a lot of outreach. So I think it was a very nice ceremony, and I would like to thank Commissioner Hewitt for recognizing both of them, because he was the one who put forward the you know, the citation for both of those, or for all three of those students. So
On Saturday, I attended the American Legion Boys State graduation. It was at Western, well, now called McDaniel College.
we're dating ourselves.
I-
Western Maryland College.
So the post which I belong to is in Ridge Post, American Post, Legion Post 255, sponsored 5 students from the southern end of the county to attend this leadership conference, well, not conference, but this leadership week. It was 4 boys from, young men from Great Mills High School and 1 from King's Christian. And what it is it's students, young men that are rising seniors into their senior year. They have to apply. Our American Legion raised money to fully fund 5 students to go. But during that week, they are immersed in government, and they're immersed in leadership. They have to take on leadership roles. They had some great speakers. They did have Peter Francho that did come and speak with them. They had a major general from the Army that came, and there's different topics that they learn about. They also learn how to make their bed with hospital corners. I call it hospital corners. Clean the bathrooms, march in line. So it's a military style, but they do learn all the leadership skills. They do form their own government and have to vote on who's going to be the mayor, who's going to be the councilman, who is going to be the governor. So they also went through different bills that are actual bills that Annapolis is going through right now. You know, and what their solution to that would be. So they learned how the bills are developed and passed. So it was a great experience for the young men, and it was great at the end to see them graduate. There's a lot of scholarships that are given for them then to attend college, and 2 then were sent to go to Boys Nation, which then will be held like in a week or 2. But there's some prominent people that did attend, such as Mike Huckabee, Bill Gates, Bill Clinton, Bruce Springsteen, Bon Jovi. A lot of senators, a lot of delegates have attended. So it's a great program. We did not have any young women that applied. So we were kind of disappointed with that. So get the word out if there's any young women that are going to be rising seniors, not for the following year. When they're in 11th grade in the springtime, they apply. And we go through the applications, and then we determine how many students we can sponsor. So it's a great lesson in leadership, and also how to do a lot of other things. So
Cleaning a bathroom and doing hospital corners. could appreciate somebody taking my children for a week, and just drilling that into them.
Flip a quarter, make sure it bounces.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
exactly.
they did. They went in there with the military style thing, but it was good experience.
Summer is a great time for getting to the work of the system that needs to be taken care of. On Friday, I had a great opportunity to go up to the new facility that CSM has constructed in the middle of the county for the trades and industry, and sign a memorandum of understanding with Dr. Godfrey, who is the outgoing president of CSM, Dr. Javier Mieres, who is the president of UMUC, and then also leading to NAVAIR SES, a gentleman by the name of James Mead. And what it really is it's a program that says we're going to go to the students who are in the National Academy of Finance, Chaptacon High School, and we're going to lay out for them a plan where they can earn some concurrent college credit in the National Academy of Finance pathway, have acceptance into CSM for coursework that is directly articulated to UMUC, and ultimately graduate with a business admin degree with an emphasis on contracting. All of it guaranteed by UMUC for a price tag of $20,000 or less. It's a pretty impressive plan. I think it'll serve our students really well, and as the Academy of Finance can draw from all three of our high schools, so anybody in the county, any student in the county who is interested in pursuing business administration or has some affinity for contracting, this is a very affordable path through. So everybody was really excited about it. Barbara Ives, who is working with CSM and really chairing a lot of this work. It's a fantastic opportunity. We're really excited about it. We're going to be talking about it a great deal in August as we bring our children back and get them very much excited about it. But as we recognize that certainly STEM drives a great deal of the employment related to the base, but we also have to recognize that managing all of those projects and all of the legal requirements and contracting that goes with it, there's quite an opportunity for a career within that as well. So that was a great deal of fun. And the last is I am very saddened to see Miss Battle retire. I am happy and hopeful for her photography and artistic pursuits. Mrs. Battle, I've worked with since I came to central office, and she's always been wonderful and gracious. And for the past 3 years, to be able to work closely with you in the superintendent's office, you are truly a patient and generous colleague, and you will be sorely missed. But I hope you recognize that this is your home, and please find your way back here and tell us of all the wonderful things that you're doing. Thank you just so much. Concludes my remarks.
Okay, you're good. All right, Ms. Lisa Bachner. Community Bank of the Chesapeake donation. Uh-oh, this is it. First presentation with the new equipment.
But no pressure.
No pressure. Dun, 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 dun.
It should all work.
I think Jeff's here for me, just in case.
He's back there,
Yeah.
yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have a whole bunch of people.
I thought it was wonderful that the board reports, as well as the superintendent, led right into what I get to do, and that's talking about the community partnerships and National Academy of Finance. And I had to borrow Miss Montgomery's glasses because I left mine in my husband's truck this morning. So I'll try not to use them.
Okay.
The Community Bank of the Chesapeake raised funds through their annual Casual for a Cause initiative to support local education institutes throughout Annapolis, Southern Maryland, and Fredericksburg, Virginia. Community Bank's Casual for a Cause offers employees a chance to dress business casual for the summer by making a donation, and all proceeds raised this year will be donated to local educational organizations that serve Community Bank of the Chesapeake's communities. The cause is entirely supported by employee contributions who embrace the spirit of giving every year, said Diane Hicks, Vice President, Director of Marketing, Community Bank of the Chesapeake. We chose to donate to educational institutions this year as a thank you for all they do for our community. We are honored to contribute to organizations who value education, knowledge, and growth. Casual for a Cause spans from May 1st through September 4th, and employees choosing to participate make a donation, which entitles them to dress business casual throughout the summer, which we all know we enjoy to do, right, Mr. Smith?
I didn't monetize ours. Now, I think I might have to.
Casual for a Cause donations totaled $6,500 this year. And this year, the National Academy of Finance located at Chopticon High School will receive $1,000 of those donations. Ms. Barbara Saylor, Vice President and Branch Manager for St. Mary's, has this to say about the award. We are very excited to be able to provide the support to St. Mary's County Public Schools. We have been committed to SMCPS for many years, fully underwriting the cost of the EverFi program that supports financial literacy in all 3 of the high schools. I was so excited to hear that the bank had selected to additionally support SMCPS with our employee donations. I recently was able to see the impact of the bank's partnership with the schools when I co-hosted a certification event at Chopticon High School. We recognized over 100 students that successfully completed the EverFi program. On behalf of St. Mary's County Public Schools, I want to thank the Community Bank of the Chesapeake, and at this time, welcome for the presentation of the donation, William Bill Passanelli, Chief Executive Officer, Diane Hicks, and Barbara Saylor. And Mr. Smith, who will make the... You have a big check.
Hopefully that camera's the camera. We'll see what we do. And I'd just like to say thank you very much on behalf of St. Mary's County Public Schools. I can guarantee you that the money will be put to very, very good purpose. So let's take a picture with a great big, here, you hold that. Hold you this. Wonderful. And I invite you, if you'd like to make a comment, anyone, if you'd like to.
Just that we're so happy.
But over in front of the microphone.
Okay, just want to say we're so grateful for all the work that St. Mary's County Public Schools does, and we look forward to continuing to support the schools with EverFi and other things as we find them. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You want to take a little break
Yes.
and get a quick photo with the
Yes,
entire
we're
board?
gonna take a 5-minute break.
Okay. We're going to call you back up for an.
Okay, consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, Ms. Susie Fowler. Wilson Tier 3 reading system. Truly the first presentation.
A lot of
You
firsts
didn't
today.
use the screens.
She's going to.
Now Mrs. Fowler gets to use the screens.
Yes.
Oh, this is That's awesome.
Mrs. Bailey, Mrs. Washington, board members, Mr. Smith, good evening. I am so glad to be here and that the right slide came up on the screens. That is fabulous. And oh, look at that. I can even make the next one come. That's great. Okay, so we are here tonight to talk about the Wilson Tier 3 reading system, which is an intervention system by the Wilson Company. And we are proposing to use grant funds from our state pass-through funds to purchase training and instructional materials for our secondary schools. We have been phasing in training and materials at elementary, and particularly as students age up, we want to have alignment as kids are moving into secondary schools and need Tier 3 reading interventions. So it is no surprise that our local data and park data demonstrates a significant achievement gap in the area of reading between students in general education and students with disabilities. There have been several research studies which demonstrate the effectiveness of the Wilson Tier 3 reading system in intervention in supporting and improving decoding fluency and comprehension skills in students with disabilities. 100% of our secondary schools report that they do not currently have at least one special education teacher per grade level who has been trained and they do not have the appropriate materials either. The Wilson Tier 3 system aligns with Foundations, which, as you are familiar with, is used across our system in the early grades to promote phonics development. And the Tier 3 reading system provides materials to address decoding, encoding, fluency, and comprehension for students in grades 2 through 12. So it's very comprehensive. And we want to allow students, of course, to stay in the same reading intervention as they transition from elementary to middle and high, rather than having to start over in new materials. So the training will consist of 30 teachers participating in a 3-day training in September. And then we are hoping to have 10 to 12 teachers participate in a year-long training, at the end of which they will receive a dyslexia specialist certification from Wilson, which is awesome. And we had 10 teachers go through that training this past year, and actually we are thinking we want you to have the opportunity to congratulate them as we begin the new school year. So the instructional materials are $17,669, professional learning $30,500, shipping and handling, wouldn't you think we could get a break on that, for a total of $49,229.14. So I'm recommending that the Board of Education approve this agenda item as presented. Should you have any questions, I would be glad to address them.
Okay, yes, I do have questions. Thank you so much for bringing these down so that I could go through. I have to tell you, Karen actually went through this evening to explain a little bit how this works, because, as things are continually changing. How long have you been using the Wilson in the elementary schools?
The Wilson originally began in elementary schools here in St. Mary's County 8 or 9 years ago. There was a comprehensive training. Materials were purchased. Unfortunately, there was not a sustainability effort in place, because it costs dollars to sustain an effort like this. And so it kind of dribbled by the wayside, and we've recognized the importance of systemically addressing this issue and having sustainability efforts in place so that we don't drop off again. So really quite a few years. And that was a major training, really years long ago. I recall it myself, although I never had the training.
And then you said there's no teachers right at this time that are trained. Is that in any of the grades, or is that only in middle and high school?
That's only in middle and high. That is special education teachers. So there's not one at each grade level who is currently trained.
Okay. And then you have down, I think it's great that you're sending people for this dyslexia training. That's wonderful. When they come back, or is it going to be divided to, say, this one's going to be at a high school level and this is at a middle school, or, how will they
That's a really good question. So the training's here on site. We're not sending anybody away.
Okay.
They'll come here for the 3-day training in September. And we have a spreadsheet. We've asked the schools to identify their person per grade level. So the schools signed up in hopes that this would all come to be in the spring. And that way we're assuring that there's at least one special education teacher per grade level. So 6th grade ELA teacher, 7th grade ELA teacher, 8th grade ELA teacher, 9th grade, 10th, 11th, and 12th, et cetera, at each school.
Oh, I think that's great. Okay. One more question was the student workbook. Is this does every child get one, or just let's say the children that are having difficulty get this book? Or?
That's another good question. This is a Tier 3 intervention, which means that very few students need an intervention that is this intense. So any of the children who are brought into the intervention will have access to the workbooks, but that's going to be a small number because of the intensity of the intervention.
But that is a
It is a consumable.
Okay, that was my other
Yes.
question, was it a consumable?
Gosh, that would have been really easy. Yeah, it's a consumable.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
I don't have any questions, Mrs. Washington?
Thank you very much. I also agree that the dyslexia training is excellent. I think that's good. Thank you very much. You identified the problem, you found the solution, something that's research-based, that is effective, and should help our students, all our students. Thank you very much.
Will it only be special ed students who are participating in this?
Another great question. At the elementary level, that has not been the case. It is more likely to be the case at the secondary level because students who are significantly, have significant reading deficits are more likely to be in special education by that time in their school career.
So the teachers who are being trained, receiving the dyslexia training, those who've just finished and those who will be taking it, do you anticipate that those will be only at the middle school and high school level, or because identifying a student who is challenged by dyslexia, the earlier it happens, the more effective the work with them and the better they'll do in school to start out. So how do you plan to?
Folks who are trained this year were the elementary people,
Okay.
and then next year is going to be the secondary people.
With only 10 or 12 being trained at the elementary level, that means we're going to have elementary schools that are not covered by that. Do you have any plans to try to flesh that out and make
We
that
would
available?
love to have lots of people have this training. However, the Tier 3 reading intervention can be implemented once a teacher's had the 3-day training. And we'll have 30 people. We had 30 people for elementary, we'll have 30 people for secondary schools who are getting that training. The Level 1 Wilson year-long program is far above and beyond that. Certainly people become much more skilled with both the strategies and the materials with that additional training, but it can be implemented with the 3 days of training. So as of September, we expect then to have 60, a combination of special ed teachers and IRTs trained throughout the system. The folks who have previously been trained, some are special ed teachers, some are IRTs. And general education and special education are working together on this initiative, and general education having instructional resource teachers trained is really important because, as you noted, some of those students don't have IEPs yet. And special educators can work with children who don't have IEPs. But having both of those sets of professionals trained is just helpful in terms of flexibility of implementing the intervention.
I think that, but I think also the fact that being trained and being able to pick up subtleties that perhaps students, younger students, have learned to accommodate, and to be able to kind of be trained to look for that or to notice those things may allow us to interact with students in a different way. And so the more that we can identify students who would be assisted by this, I think the better we'll do. And, you know, coming from a family who has the challenges of dyslexia over, you know, across, this is something I was really pleased to see, and I just really want to make sure that it's being rolled out in a way that as many students as possible can be identified and helped so that they don't have greater issues at a later time.
Absolutely. And our long-term vision is that we will get to the point where we are able to sustain our own training instead of having to go to Wilson on a yearly basis. And of course, that would require some resources. So I'll keep this in mind when we come back in the future to talk more about that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I was just wondering if the materials that you provide to students, especially in the higher grade levels, are printed or like, do they have electronic?
Another good question. This is not an electronic program. It's multi-sensory in that it's visual and auditory and hands-on.
Thank you.
Anyone have anything else? May I have a motion for this action item?
I move that the Board of Education approve the Wilson Tier 3 Reading System contract for a grand total of $49,229.14.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Walker. New plan.
Evening.
Good evening.
I am here tonight to share with you our current plan for the Division of Supporting Services and Information Technology Services facility. As you know, the Commissioners of St. Mary's County recently approved our local CIP, fully funding our request, but asking us to come back with an alternate plan with some modifications. So we're coming to you today to discuss kind of where we are, what we're looking at. And over the course of this year and previous years, we've had many conversations. It's allowed us really to explore many options in depth, look at pros and cons of each of those. And obviously every project, every option has pros and cons. But what we'd like to share today is an option that will serve our needs in both the short term and the long term as we move forward with IT and the system needs. Quickly, a little background. You've heard this before in different formats and different forums, but the Mary McLeod Bethune Educational Center was constructed in 1961. And in the 1990s, IT, Information Technology Services, was moved into that space. But there's been relatively little work done to the facility over the course of its existence. So we put a roof on 8 years ago. But in terms of infrastructure, the heating system is 56 years old. Air conditioning is handled through window units, with the exception of the server area and IT space, which we've installed some units that are sufficient to cool the equipment that's in that room. We first proposed replacing the heating and cooling system in fiscal year 2009, and that amount of money has been included every year in our CIP since that year. And the project, in terms of renovation to the Bethune Center, includes asbestos removal, replacement of flooring, along with the heating and cooling system. The Division of Supporting Services building in Loveville was constructed in 1962. During the 1990s, it was converted to the supporting services facility that we know now. Behind the building, behind our office building, is a metal area, and if you can see in this small picture to the side, this is the metal building behind the main office building, and it's not all warehouse. The far left-hand bays are vehicle maintenance and repair. The center section has our cabinetry, woodworking, and some shops. And so the far right bay, those two on the right, that's our current warehouse space. That was our warehouse space in 2000 when it was built, and it's our warehouse space in 2017, when obviously the system has undergone extreme growth during that time. So we're still functioning out of that storage space, and it's just not sufficient for the system's needs in the short term and in the long term. So again, this has been in our CIP for quite some time. In addition to the warehouse, was first requested in fiscal year 2010 and has been included every year since that time. So as we look at the revised project and the current scope, what we plan to do is modify the existing DSS office area to incorporate information technology services staff, equipment, and work areas. We do not plan to make any additions to the existing supporting services office building. However, it will require the displacement of some departments and the relocation of those departments to a centrally located leased space. We are still planning to add a 2,500 square foot addition to the warehouse in the back to address those short and long-term needs. When we looked at our warehousing needs, about 60% of the things we really want to use a warehouse for require regular access 2 to 3 times a week. And to have that located in a site some distance away makes it very inefficient, and then you're also more in need of camera and even staffing support at that point. So having this facility on site next to the existing warehouse will address the short and long-term needs of our supplies and consumable work. It says design work will begin. We've actually already begun. The commissioners have allocated design money in fiscal year 17's CIP. So we've already started to use some of that to get a handle on the needs of the system. We've hired an architect and consulted with them once already to start to design and lay out how this all is going to work. And then we need to lease and occupy space in the community, because the offices that will be displaced need to move out first before we can renovate and modify that building, the existing building, and move information technology services in. So at your July meeting, we'll come back to you with some more information about leasing opportunities and options in the area. Just a quick look at our existing building. The whole front of the building, well, let me back up for a second. The existing Bethune building has about 11,600 square feet. And of that square footage, about 7,000 is actually assignable to staff. So you take out the boiler room, you take out the bathrooms, those kind of things that aren't really office or work areas, you're down to about 7,600 square feet. The whole front section of our building in Loveville is right around 6,000 square feet. So if we move information technology services into that area from a square footage perspective, it's very similar to what they're using now. So if you just look at the map, here you've got, this is existing kind of unused storage space. We use it as swing space when we overflow in the warehouse. It has a large front door. This would be a good area if we keep it this way to have IT's materials come in and out. This is a current training area, which will be difficult to lose, but we're looking at some creative options to keep that usable for multiple purposes. The right section of this part of the building is capital planning, so capital planning would be displaced from their area. We move across the hall. This area is the old food services office. They recently moved down to the end of the building here, so right now this area is vacant. We haven't done anything with this since they moved out, because we knew there's going to be some use of it in this project, and we didn't want to move anybody in and then have to move them out. And then this last end of the building is the current offices for design and construction. They would be relocated. Still some question about whether they move out of the building or to some other place in the building. This area in the center of the back is partly my current office space and partly storage space. So while I won't have the same office needs there, I'll still need a small office to go back and forth between the buildings so that I can stay in touch with all the departments and supporting services. But this is available space that may be used in the supporting services building for other options. We're kind of keeping an open mind as we work with the architect to see how things might play out. But IT would generally exist in the front section, all across the front of the current supporting services building. So you kind of have that picture in your head as we're moving forward. When you look at cost, this kind of lays out the project cost. Now this doesn't reflect any cost associated with Bethune. We'll talk about that in a minute, but we've got a total of little over $1.9 million in this version of our request. So $206,000 of that is design and inspection. $1.6 million is renovation and site work at the DSS building and the warehouse behind, and an $82,000 contingency to address unforeseen issues or needs. So again, a total revised budget of $1.9 million. What's been approved by the commissioners of St. Mary's County and was our original request was a little over $3.4 million. They've already provided $169,000 of that in fiscal year 17. So if we just look at totals, 3.4 is the original request. Right now we've got a revised budget of 1.9. This is a savings to the commissioners of almost $1.5 million in this request. That is kind of the idea, the concept for moving information technology services from Bethune to the supporting services building and adding a small warehouse addition, some extension of the warehouse in the back to support our inventory and consumable and maintenance needs going forward. Again, it does displace at least a few staff members out of the current supporting services building, anywhere between, it could be anywhere between 9 and 11 or 12, depending on which offices move, and of those offices, if any, stay back for whatever particular reason in the old building. So in addition to this cost, there will be recurring costs for lease space in the Leonardtown area for those displaced offices. Right now, that's the recommendation. Move on to the disposition of Bethune. So what happens to the Mary McLeod Bethune Center when Information Technology Services moves out? And there are a number of options. The three that are most clearly viable are, first, renovation for use as storage. We've discussed this in a number of venues, that we could renovate for a smaller cost than replacing all the heating and air conditioning. We wouldn't need a fully climate-controlled space. So the renovation of Bethune for storage purposes would cost an estimated $413,000, slightly more. And again, that makes the space viable for storage of mostly non-climate sensitive, humidity sensitive materials. There would be a small section we would keep for materials that might be sensitive to temperature and humidity. Second option would be demolition of the building on the property, and that would cost approximately $396,000. The third option was the original kind of concept at the beginning of all this, was to leave it as is, and as is required in state regulation and law. When we no longer need a facility, there's a process to surplus it back to the county government. And you'll recall probably the Hollywood Elementary building, the George Washington Carver building. It's the same process we would follow as we did for those two. So those are three options, and certainly we, if we do the project the way we have it set up in the original 1.9 million, we don't necessarily need to maintain Bethune as a facility of the school system anyway. It certainly would be reasonable to ask the commissioners what they might consider the best option here, but that's why we wanted to bring you these scenarios and have a conversation with you about those options. So this is the last slide before the recommendation. I'll be happy to answer any questions as we move forward. And we have to take, once you all have approved a process to move forward, we'll take this back to Dr. Bridget and Ms. Cudmore at County Government as requested by the commissioners, and move forward from there.
I know this has been an ongoing discussion, and I know we've had, talked to you about a lot of different things, and you've kept us up to date with all the options. Other than that, I mean, I don't have any questions, but thank you for keeping us up to date with what's going on.
Yeah, I'm just going to kind of frame everything. So Mr. Smith and I meet regularly with Commissioner President Guy and Dr. Bridget. So during the course of the budget session, while they were going through the CIP, they kind of let us know what the commissioners were thinking about the original $3.4 million that they had allocated to us. So at that time, we kind of knew where we stood before we had the joint meeting with the Board of Education and the county commissioners on what we might have to do in order to scope back this project. So I think this is a good solution. I know that it's not what we originally proposed, but working within the guidelines that I think we were provided with the county commissioners, I think it's a feasible solution, and it's coming in and saves them the $1.9 million in their CIP, or 1.5, sorry, which they, which they clearly made known that they need for additional projects within, their current fiscal year as well. So, thank you for kind of thinking outside the box and continuing to explore all the options. And, we still have the full amount funded, but keep in mind, everyone, the understanding was at that joint meeting between us that we would come back with an alternative plan to not expend that full amount of money. So, and that's what this is.
Right, and as that was articulated in a couple of different venues, it was, don't build anything new.
Correct. We don't want Bethune back.
You figure out what you want to do with Bethune, don't make it, and then ultimately consider other options to include leasing
Leasing
space.
space.
So I do applaud Dr. Walker for going back and taking all those. Once again, the solution that was originally proposed, $3.5 million, you build its own standalone warehouse with an IT center, you build the entire project, and when it's done, you just move staff over to it, and that's the easiest. This plan is quite creative, but it's going to require, a great deal of phasing, a great deal of patience on behalf of from the staff as we go through it. But I'm quite confident in the abilities of the people with whom we work. So.
Well, and the end result too, I think, was the feeling of everyone is to have the IT facility centrally located, just from a recovery standpoint, from a power outage standpoint, and geographical, so. Mrs. Washington?
Our need for warehouse space has not changed since 2010, and we will continue to need warehouse space as our system grows. We followed the commissioner's instruction that we look at this, bring back options, and this is what we're presenting to them. And then once they look at it, we'll have to take it from there. So thank you for doing all the research to come up with some viable options.
Without question, we need to address the IT situation, we need to address the warehouse. The question becomes, how do we do that? You have laid out the cost, the renovation site work of $1.665 million. Does that include monies for the option with Bethune? Or is that $413,000 or the $393,000, is that, or $396,000, is that in addition to?
Be in addition to.
So really, we're talking about not $1.5 million going back to them, but potentially a little more than $1 million. Is that correct?
If we do nothing with the site at all, we'd be reverting almost 1.5.
5 million.
If demolish, take off 400,000, renovate to, for asbestos, that's 400,000. So that really is, we're talking about that last $1.5 million.
Okay, and that's what I'm trying to understand is exactly, what that cost is, and then the ongoing need for office space. I mean, we don't know yet what the lease cost is going to be, but we at least will know that it's going to be an ongoing cost rather than a one-time cost.
Right, the idea of recurring costs effectively, the rent is definitely one, and obviously if we make Bethune a storage facility, that has ongoing costs as well.
So, I think that it's important as we go forward for the commissioners to have all of the various iterations of the plan laid out with as much of the cost laid out for them as possible, knowing that, there's still a question of what that lease cost would be and some challenge in estimating what it would cost to keep Bethune going, because I want everybody to understand, from the start, what those long-term costs are going to be, or what the impact is going to be on the budget. But I certainly understand the challenge with which they're faced. And at the same time, the challenge we're faced with is sooner or later, if we try to leave IT where it is, there's going to be a failure, and the significance of that failure is going to be potentially quite extreme. So I appreciate the thoughtfulness with which you brought this forward, and I especially appreciate the willingness of the commissioners to entertain the various options that are available to us. And I think we as a group will move forward with what makes sense to us, and then hand it off to them and see where we go.
So just so we're clear, so what we are going to present to the county commissioners, you go back, so the $1.9 million for the renovation of this is it. And then the discussion, we will discuss that, but then the discussion that opens up with the commissioners for their input, in addition to the other, will be Bethune, so there will be two pieces. So,
Thank you for clarifying. I
Right.
was going to ask that question.
right, Right.
For our purposes, you cannot continue to look at a problem and not move forward.
Right.
We've looked at this now for a while.
Right.
So we have to move forward. So we have design money, we have to put forward a design. What you're approving today is, we've kind of estimated that we can solve all of our problems minus the Bethune facility for about $2 million.
out of CIP, and then the additional, to your point, the additional
then-
expense on
right.
recurring for whatever
We'll
space
have
we may need
budget
to lease,
implications for
and
going
whatever
forward.
we have with Bethune. So then the question comes, based on the guidance that we got from the county commissioners, is what to do with Bethune, and then those are the three options for discussion on Bethune.
And that funding would come out of capital,
Correct.
not operating.
Right.
So, and, that's the distinction I'm trying to make is, yes, it's just slightly less than $2 million, but if we're going to do anything with Bethune, there's an additional cost that you've laid out there. And so we have to do something. I think going forward with this, but as I said, as this is all laid out for them, I just want to make sure they understand. I don't want somebody to come back later and say, well, wait a minute, how did we miss? Or
Right.
And that's,
And that's why we compartmentalized it, I think, this way. So you have a solution, we have this Bethune, and then along with this solution, we will have additional recurring costs that will
And
impact
that's-
the budget.
and that's what I particularly like about the way the commissioners have requested us to go back and work directly with Jeanette Cudmore. So we really are, we're going to be very much working with somebody who's directly involved in the fiscal concerns of the county and can really understand all those one-time and/or ongoing costs. So, a great conversation. I look forward to it.
very good, thank you.
Rama, what do you have? Nothing?
Sorry.
Okay, anything else? All right, with that, may I have a motion for this action item?
I move the Board of Education approve the revised DSS/IT facility project scope recommendation.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, thank you, Dr. Walker. All right,
And speaking of demolition,
that's right, Mrs. Harwick. Demolition at the new elementary school site.
Here we go, a little bit slower than some of the other ones, but this action item is to do the demolition on the future site of our next elementary school. I'll say that Ms. Howe taken the lead in this project. Mr. Whidden and I have assisted her as we get closer to demolition. So it really was a collaborative approach. So just by way of a little background, the property was acquired in 2016. It's a large site, over 65 acres. And because of the age of and condition of a lot of the buildings that are there are 14 structures on site. There was a comprehensive hazardous material assessment done on all 14 prior to demolition, so we knew what would be taking place and had to be abated. So you can see that there are a number of those structures that have various issues. The main building is the one that has asbestos pipe insulation. It's not a lot, but it's there. And things like mercury thermostats, fluorescent bulbs, and other things that all require disposal as hazardous material. And then you see that in the other structures, there's various solvents, lubricants, and those kinds of things that also have to be treated as hazardous material. And then there's a little bit of asbestos in the old instrument landing system on site. So that's kind of the range of, and some propane tanks that we have to get rid of. But that's the range of the abatement. And just, let me see if I can pull this up. Just to give you an orientation, this is part of the site. This is Route 5. And then you see that most of the structures are in the vicinity of the main house. But there are some outlining. There we go. There are some outlining buildings out here as well. And there's one old abandoned tenant house that is very close to the property owned by Mr. Raley. So just to give you an idea of the condition of these structures, this is the main house, and you see a whole variety of different sheds and outbuildings throughout the site. There's a few more buildings, some of them in very poor condition.
Mr. Hartwick, of those pictures, which one is the instrument landing system shack?
Yeah, I believe it's this one right here.
Yeah,
Okay.
this one is in the middle of the field.
So I think it dates back to the 1940s. So that's those are the structures, and you can see by their condition how important it is that we kind of clean up the site. So that's the imperative of this. We looked at possible options for the demolition, and the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission has an existing contract. This contract is really well suited for us in that that scope of work identifies older, decrepit structures that need to be removed, and that's right in alignment with what we're proposing. That contract is good through 2018. It is held by Waco Incorporated, which is a abatement contractor located in Mechanicsville. And we've used Waco on a number of occasions, both for capital improvement projects, but also for maintenance projects. Perform very well. So the demolition services are based on unit prices for equipment, personnel, materials, disposal, and restoration. And so we provided you with the contract and those unit prices. Overall, $135,000 has been allocated for various elements of the demolition, and I'll come back to that in a minute. So at $85,000, you see that's the bottom line. And that compares very favorably with both the scope of work and the bid price that the county had for demolition of structures on the Hayden property. So that's kind of our proof that this is a good value. In terms of the initial financial, so again, the total is $85,000. That leaves us a project contingency of just over 16,000, bringing those two items to a total of 101,000 plus. There still is money remaining to take care of some of the things like the septic system, removal of the well, and some other issues down the line. So that is our recommendation, to use the national contract as presented.
Just keep you on your toes.
Yeah.
Kathy, do you have any?
I noticed that in some of the pictures you showed, there's, like lawn tractor or garden tractor or something. I mean, is what's left on the site really limited to the hazardous materials, or are there other things that?
There are other things that have to be disposed of as well.
I'm just really struck by this instrument landing system
Yeah.
shack.
Yeah.
Is there still equipment in that, or has it been emptied? Okay, I was gonna say, otherwise, let's call the Navy and say, here, present for you. I'm pleased that we're gonna be able to kind of take care of this. When do you expect the demolition to take place?
Well, first, as I should have mentioned, we do have a separate contract with Waco for the abatement, and that's just about $8,300. That is scheduled for towards the end of July 21st. So once we get that done, hopefully with your approval tonight, we can start scheduling the actual demolition. But our hope would be that we could complete that during the summer and just clean up that site.
Great, thank you.
No questions, thank you.
I have nothing, thank you.
Did Waco also do the Hayden property?
No, that was another firm. And for whatever reason, Waco did not bid on that project.
Great, that's it, thank you.
All right, with that, may I have a motion for this recommended action item?
I move that the Board of Education approve the award of a contract for the demolition of structures at the Elif property to Waco Incorporated in the amount of $85,000, utilizing the Maryland National Park Service Commission Demolition Services Contract number 350510 as presented by staff.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you very much. And now if you want to just continue right into the relocatables at
Yeah,
Carver and Lexington.
it's that time of year. So again, we looked at a existing contract that we thought was suitable for the moving of existing relocatable units to George Washington Carver Elementary School and Lexington Park Elementary School. There continued to be enrollment growth in the Great Mills area, and the greatest need for right now is for additional classrooms at George Washington Carver and Lexington Park Elementary Schools. George Washington Carver currently has 4 classrooms in modular units, and we're proposing as part of this to add a double classroom unit that will be used to house additional 3rd grade classes. Lexington Park Elementary School currently has 3 double classroom units. 2 of those units are being used by the STEM program. So we're proposing to add an existing double unit at Lexington Park, and that would be used for 5th grade classroom. The units that we would be moving, one is located at Oakville Elementary School and the other is at Leonardtown Elementary School. Our goal and what we're working toward is to have those units in place for the opening of the 2017-18 school year. We did look at 3 open contracts, one at Montgomery County Public Schools, one at Wycomico, and one at Charles County Public Schools. Of all those 3, the Charles County Public Schools was clearly the most comprehensive. So that was the reason we selected that. That contract, PCR R1-1415, was competitively bid in 2015 and awarded to Hash Construction. and it has been extended through June 29th, 2017. So it is based on unit prices and hourly labor rates, as well as unit prices. Hash Construction has done numerous relocations for us. They know this business. They do extensive work for Charles County Public Schools as well. So the two proposals that we provided you for, the one for Lexington Park Elementary School is $90,385. That's the unit that we're moving from Oakville Elementary School. It's actually a triple unit, and it's in 3 sections. As part of this proposal, we would be extending and matching the existing wood canopy and walkways that currently exist for the existing relocatable units at Lexington Park. It would also include a new 200 amp electrical service and water and sewer connections for the restroom. The proposal for George Washington Carver is $116,259. That difference in cost is largely the result of matching, which I think is important, the extending aluminum canopy and walkway and make that whole complex unified. We will, right now, we're planning on a 400 amp electrical service, again, to kind of anticipate that there might be a possibility for another unit in the future. So I will say that the proposals are comparable to previous bids that we've done. As an example, back in 2014, there was a similar scope at George Washington Carver, and the low bid on that was $128,000. So here's our financial summary on these projects. So the total for both proposals is $206,644. We're going to be asking you to approve a construction contingency, a combined contingency of $30,000, bringing the total project to $236,644. Now, the relocatable projects is kind of an ongoing funding drain, and currently the fund balance is about $691,000. So after all of this work, assuming that we do use the construction contingency in its entirety, we still have $454,000 plus for future relocatable projects. So with that, we're asking your approval to use the existing Charles County contract and authorize a construction contingency of $30,000.
So with the increase in population in the Lexington Park area, you said something about possibly having another relocatable. Is that something that we need to look at, soon before the school year, or is that like maybe next school year?
I'll tell you, I think we need to look forward a little bit so we're not kind of in this timeline crunch. And Ms. Howe does a terrific job on her enrollment projections. She's taken them out for many years. I think we really need to look carefully at that and anticipate what future projects we might have to do, including possibly Park Hall.
Okay. And are we going to need to soon look at purchasing more relocatables since they seem to be being used up everywhere?
Yeah, and it's an aging fleet, as it were. I think we're going to look at that. If you look at the unit that we're moving at George Washington Carver, again, that one's not too old. It's only about 5 years old. That was $175,000 to buy and install at, Leonardtown Elementary School. So there is some savings.
Thank you.
I have nothing. I just have a general comment. I appreciate, after going through some of the schools and seeing the different relocatables, I do appreciate the canopies and awnings on the walkways. It's always, the kids are always there with their coats and umbrellas when it's raining, so kudos for making sure that happens. Thank you. Mrs. Washington?
And I'll add to that, and the restrooms.
Mm-hmm.
And the
Yeah,
restrooms.
have
Thank you
restrooms
very
in
much.
facilities, that's great.
You know, we are a growing system, and I'm just grateful that we're able to utilize and move some of these relocatable units that we have, rather than having to continually purchase new. And we've been able to do that by virtue of the planning for and building of new schools. But you know, this is an ongoing issue, and I'm sure that you'll be back before us sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Do you know how long the process of relocating and installing will be? I know you said it would finish before the start of the school year, but I was just wondering.
Yeah, I mean, one of the variables is that at both Lexington Park and Carver, we've kind of maxed out the electrical infrastructure in that area, and we're going to have to extend the SMECO service, and that alone can take 60 days. So we're going to be right up to the opening of school.
Right, the structures will be there, installed, canopy ready to go, waiting for making sure that we have the SMECO, the electric.
That's our goal.
That's the goal. That's always the goal. Have it already.
In the event that doesn't happen,
You know, we're always talking to the principals about if it can't be delivered, you know, right on time, is mitigating factors, and so we need to have that conversation with both the principals.
very good.
Okay. May I have a motion?
I move the Board of Education approve the use of the Charles County Public Schools Contract PCRR 1-1415 for the relocation and installation of modular units at George Washington Carver Elementary School and Lexington Park Elementary School in the amount of $206,644 to Hash Construction Incorporated, and further authorizes a construction contingency of $30,000 for the project.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Varner. Everyone's favorite, cutting grass.
Get sheep.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, we need to have the what is it?
Or get, you can borrow my goats.
Yeah.
How many do you have?
Right now, I only have 4. Huh?
We need many more.
Heard.
Just let them
Good
get
evening.
there. Range free at the schools, that'd be great.
Good evening. Our current grass cutting contract is approaching its termination. Ms. Mail and I are here to talk about our recommendation for procuring those services moving forward. First, a little background information. Maintenance and operations co-manage the services of this contract currently at all our schools and office sites. For the past 5 years, we've been working with Level Green Landscaping on a contract that we bid out in 2012, approved by our board, and we've exercised all 4 one-year renewals on that contract to great reviews. Our annual expenditures are typically around $175,000 to $185,000. As I mentioned, Level Green has provided us with a high level of service during that time period. Specifically, I want to point out their responsiveness. When we do have inclement weather, they have enough equipment and resources to double time and take care of our grounds in anticipation of events like graduation, field days, and things like that. So this June, we posted an invitation to bid for grass cutting services in our county. Included were several additions and modifications made since the last contract's implementation. Got a new elementary school during that time, the E-Lift property, as well as differences to some exterior renovations at Oakville and Mechanicsville. On the 19th, 3 bids were received. We are recommending award to Level Green Landscaping, LLC of Washington, D.C. once again for procurement of these throughout the duration of that contract, which can potentially be extended through June 30th of 2022.
Mrs. Weaver?
No questions, thank you.
I have nothing, thank you. I do have, when you said the responsiveness time, like, how quick is the turnaround? Like, are we on a regular schedule, or is it?
We are on a regular
as-
schedule of cuts.
Okay.
Obviously, that's affected by weather conditions quite often.
Okay. So, like, if we have, something is happening at a school that's unexpected, like, the state
Visiting of
superintendent comes
Dr.
down, like, are they?
Karen Salmon.
A principal calls me, Level Green can be out there same day.
Okay.
most of the time.
Okay. Okay. All right, thank
I cited that as an example in that the day before they were scheduled to cut, it had rained, so they had not been able to do it, so they were out at the crack of dawn to take care of the exterior of the tech center in Leonardtown. So when Dr. Salmon came, a fresh mown lawn, which is a lovely thing.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Washington?
No questions, thank you.
The responsiveness is important. I know that when my own kids were in elementary school, the company that was being utilized, or whoever was mowing at that time, and I believe it was through the county, the responsiveness was not there, and it presented a great many issues, not the least of which was mowing during testing time, and a little hard for kids to concentrate when there's all that equipment outside the window. I bet you have. And thank you very much for that, because you might not think that's an issue, but if you're in the school and you hear all that blasting, because it can get noisy at times, that is something at least we have some control over, which is nice. Thank you.
Roma?
Out of curiosity, do they regularly mow lawns during school as well? I know you're just saying during testing season it doesn't happen, but just through like the regular school days?
Typically, we do a little bit more while school's in session,
Okay.
slow it down a little bit in the summertime. But, we're budgeted for a certain amount of cuts per year. That's weather dependent too. We try to schedule it this.
Anything else? Okay. Motion from someone, please?
I move that the Board of Education approve the contract award of ITB SMCPS 2018 OGMS to Level Green Landscaping LLC to provide grass cutting and grounds maintenance services on an as-needed basis at the estimated cost of $208,675 per fiscal year throughout the duration of the contract, which can be valid through June 30th, 2022.
Have a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you very much.
I still think you need to get sheep. And goats.
Oh, my dog likes to eat grass. You could borrow him too.
All right. Mr. Whitten, replacement of our fleet vehicles.
Good evening, how are you?
Good evening.
It's very different.
It is a little disorienting, isn't it?
It is. And I've actually been in here while it was being done, so I should.
Yeah,
I
you
shouldn't be
were,
disoriented.
and thank you for that.
Department of Maintenance, replacement of SMCPS fleet vehicles. With the board support and we've been able to get almost on a schedule for continually replacing 2 to 3, 4 vehicles a year, which is,
It's great.
it is.
It's so much better than it was.
Not just because they're new, but because we literally had trucks, pickup trucks, flatbeds that were rusting out. We had schools that didn't have trucks because we couldn't pass any down. Some of the trucks we passed down for removal of garbage. And you've seen some of our fleet vehicles that are still in operation. So I do, before I started with anything, I do appreciate your previous support. The Department of Maintenance, we manage a fleet of about 108. This does not include the buses. Each year, a review of the status of the fleet is made, and we make recommendations. Those recommendations, in part, are contained in the Comprehensive Maintenance Plan, which you'll be seeing in about a month and a half now. And the vehicles are selected for replacement, often based on, and the vehicles that are selected for replacement are often reassigned to less burdensome functions. Again, something that's been on the road every day may end up at the tech center for the kids to repair, or something for the kids at the tech center to use to transport supplies to whatever they're building, or whatever projects are on, or it would go to a high school. Sedans typically are retired to a loaner stage, where we loan them out when people bring in for oil changes, that kind of thing. Currently, we recommend, current recommendations include the replacement of 6 vehicles based on mileage, age, repair history, and primary function. The one thing the comprehensive maintenance plan doesn't speak to directly is difficult. It does speak to the age, and it does speak to the mileage. We look to get at least 200,000 miles out of our vehicles, and right now at 15 to 20 years, which is quite a war end. Repair, quite often the question I get asked is, if this one has more miles, why isn't it the next one up? And because of the repair history or its primary function. So the vehicles being recommended to be replaced this year are 3 3/4-ton vans, 2 sedans, well, 3 sedans. Sorry. Don't know exactly where to look. So it's three vans and
If you look right in front of you, that's the less, that's the.
3 vans and 3 sedans. So the new vehicles are the Transit, which is a little different looking. And we'll look at that in just a second. And then again, we're back to the Ford Focus. It seems like every year the state awards a new sedan. Sometimes it's a Taurus, Malibu, and Focus is what I've seen. So it's more square shape, so it will look different. But this is where everything is going, and I do like the headroom in them. They're a lot easier to get in and out, especially for a tall man.
Doesn't bother me.
Yeah, a lot of, well, tall man's headache. In the Ford Focus, this is how the current Ford Focus will look. We are staying with white, and unless the board has a different pleasure, but that's the reason I selected those particular photos. And that, so we're asking that the board approve the use of, again, we're going through state contracts that were solicited through Maryland General Service Administration. The contracts are listed up here for purchase of 3 Ford Focus sedans under 001B74000097 at a cost of $15,548 each, and 3 2017 Ford Transits 150s 3/4-ton vans under contract 001B740014 at $21,828 each. The total purchase price for all the vehicles together would be $112,128. Procurement method that was used, we are using existing contracts, so it is considered a cooperative or piggybacking type arrangement. And asking the recommendation is for the board to approve this agenda item as presented. And do you have any questions?
All I'm going to say is those maintenance guys on these vehicles are doing an outstanding job to get them, I mean, what, 203,000, 219,000? I mean, to keep those vehicles going. Big shout out to them. So hopefully they can work on my cars in the future, doing this kind of work. So no, and you figure that you've gotten this much use out of them, and for what you're paying, and then going to be able to keep them for another,
10, 15 years.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
for
I
the-
think that's
For the Ford Taurus, 22 years for that Taurus. It's the green one out there.
Yeah. So great job on those with those maintenance guys on those vehicles.
I also was very impressed with the price for these vehicles, because I've been looking at something similar to this for personal use, and I'm not getting anywhere near 21.
So is this extended to?
I wish. So, thank you.
No. Thank you for checking into that.
I have nothing. Thank you very much, Ms. Washington.
Thank you, no questions.
I'm struck by the list that you gave us. I am really pleased that we're able to do that that we're able to now start doing this through an ongoing addressing it, because, I mean, the 1994 GMC 1-ton stake body At 23 years of age, 2 more years and we can get historic pleats for that thing.
It's at one of the high schools and it's still doing it.
Oh, and then the 95 bucket truck that's got over 309,000 miles on it.
Point of pride.
Yeah, the use is very low on that one,
Yeah.
but we do use it.
I mean, you look down through the list and there are some vehicles that we have that are really up there in age, and so kudos truly, as Mrs. Weaver said, to your staff who keep these vehicles on the road, functioning and reliable. Knock on wood. So, thank you.
Okay. With that, may I have a motion for this action item?
I move that the Board of Education approve the use of the existing state of Maryland statewide contracts for the purchase of 3 2017 Ford Transit 150 3/4-ton cargo vans under contract 001B7 for 00143 at $21,828 each, and 3 2017 Ford Focus sedans under contract 001B74 00097 at $15,548 each, for a total purchase price of $112,128.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. All right. Interior and exterior painting. Still Mr. Whitney.
Department of Maintenance painting services, each year we come to you before the summer starts for some contracted painting. The Department of Maintenance maintains about 2.3 million square foot of office space each year as the budget allows. Interior and exterior painting is executed in accordance with the comprehensive maintenance plan for educational facilities. Interior painting was last completed in 1999 at Green Holly Elementary School. Interior painting was last completed in 2008 at Leonardtown Elementary School. Exterior painting at Lexington Park and Park Hall Elementary Schools were last completed in 2003 and 1999 respectively. Interior painting is currently targeted for an interval of about every 12 years. Exterior painting is targeted for an interval of approximately 15 years. But adjustments and annually are based on actual conditions of the interior paint and the budget. So to ensure the results of the bid would allow for the greatest flexibility for SMCPS, there was 3 phases of the bidding were done separately. So you'll notice that this is not. I apologize. This is not. There was a grammatical correction in the presentation, and the new equipment. The files were sent separately. So they were it was broken up into 4 areas: what we call item A1, Green Holly Elementary School; item A2, Leonardtown Elementary School; item B1, Lexington Park Elementary School; and item B2, Park Hall Elementary School. Green Holly Elementary School, A and B completion. So this will be the last sections of Green Holly. We've been doing, Green Holly is actually 2 schools that are connecting, and we had to arrange around. So you'll notice in the next 2 slides that the first slide's pretty condensed. Let's see if I can remember how. Last year, we did all this area, which is in white, is everything has been done. The only rooms that we're gonna have to go back and do independently are gonna be the pool area here, and then these 4 rooms on the ends of the building, which are currently being used for summer programs. We have a similar situation on the other side of the building that we'll have to go back and complete. So on the opposite side of the building, everything's been painted with the exception, after this contract's awarded, everything will have been painted with the exception of these 6 rooms at the end of the hallway, which again are being used for a summer program. Leonardtown Elementary School is relatively new. It was built recently. A lot of the, not all of the hallway, but a lot of the hallway space is drywall, is undergone damage. We are looking at wall coverings that are aesthetically pleasing to help. We also, with the repaint, the site administrator has been, and she's been gracious with this, is to select a two-tone, so we're painting to about 3.5, 4 foot with a darker color, and above that'll be a lighter color to hide some of the dirt and some of the dings, because right now it's a beige, it's a very light beige. The entire wall is a very light beige. But drywall in hallways is not
ideal.
Not ideal, yeah. We do have that situation in Margaret Brent, and there is a material that was selected shortly after the last renovation that they put on the areas that helped a lot. The problem is it is not extremely aesthetically pleasing. So we're looking, there's a lot of new products out there since Margaret Brent was rebuilt. Lexington Park Elementary, basically we're doing all exterior windows, doors, and trim. There's something I should mention on this. I probably won't come back to the board for this project because of the cost, but I do plan to redo the underside of this canopy with a vinyl. I don't know if any of you have visited it recently, but it's a drywall. It's an exterior drywall, but it fails quite often. We spend a lot of time down there. So we're looking at some more of the exterior vinyl, especially the ones that we saw them use at Spring Ridge. They're a lot more attractive these days. So we're thinking about ripping out the underside of that this year or next and replacing it. So you have a little canopy there, and there's another one that doesn't show on this particular drawing, which is here. Moving on, Park Hall Elementary School. Again, we're doing basically the entire exterior of the building, but the areas that need painted are highlighted in yellow on the floor plan, which are only about 3/4 of the building. And the picture was to give the board as well as the contractor an idea before they arrived on site to look at it, the job of what we meant when we said guttering, piping, and door trim and exterior. There is stucco here that on the bottom of some of these windows that needs to be cleaned, but it is not, we're not painting it. It's not recommended you paint it. It does not breathe or release moisture anymore after it's painted. So, but it can be cleaned with a mild soap and a mild pressure wash. So the procurement method was an ITB. It was put together and it was advertised on email Marketplace through Ms. Mail's office. And the bids were opened on June 19th, 2017. 4 bids were received. Sorry, I'm going to go to the next screen. I have to adjust for the format on this. So Tito, we're recommending that Tito be awarded item A1 at Green Holly in the price of $21,750. We're also recommending that Colossal Contractors Incorporated be awarded items A2, which is Leonardtown Elementary School hallways, and B1, which is Lexington Park Elementary School exterior doors and trims, for $9,800, which brings the total for that contractor to $22,400. And that D Projects Incorporated be awarded items B2 for Park Hall Elementary School exterior doors, trims, and roof drains in the amount of $8,670. Recommendation is the Board of Education approve this agenda item as presented. And I apologize how not smooth that went.
I think it went wonderfully.
Do you have any? Does the board have any questions?
Just out of curiosity, is it common for for different contractors to focus on different schools during like the same time frame?
Each contractor bid on all the schools and
Okay.
all the projects. These were the most, definitely pay attention to the font size.
Yeah.
You
did.
did.
Yeah.
It's on, we have it.
So each one of the items is listed vertically or from rows, but yeah, they all bid on all the jobs, but our pricing for painting has been volatile, in my opinion, over the past 5 years.
So that was my question, is that, so the board approves a total amount of money for painting. none of these contracts exceed the $24.99. Why are we bringing them forward as though they were bundled? They're not. The board with this isn't going to be awarding $52,820 to anybody. You're awarding a $21,000, a $22,000, and a $8,000 bid. Why is this coming before the board for their approval?
That is a good question, and if the board does not want to see a project presentation like this, when there's gonna be multiple awards, and each individual contract is less than 25,000, then we can certainly not, put that presentation together for you. In the future, we put the bid out as one invitation to bid, and we reserved the right to award the contract in part or in total as was in our best interest. And once we open the bids and we determine that we could award to multiple vendors and that Mr. Whidden had the staff available to oversee multiple projects going on at multiple times by different vendors, we determined that this would be the best, most effective, cost-efficient way of doing it. The total project is $52,800, but you're correct, no one individual contract is over 25. So we can accommodate, I would prefer to present to the board contracts that are over 25,000, which is what is required in our policies and procedures.
And that's what's required by law. So,
We're required to bid contracts that we anticipate will be over 25,000, which this was. But our policies say the board approves over 25,000 in contracts.
right. And like I said, that's what not only does our policy say that, but that's what I believe Comar says, that we're required to approve anything over, a contract over 25,000.
Just point of clarification, within this, there is no single contract that exceeds $24,999.
And we have done this similar type of presentation to you in the past too. Most recently that I can think of was the DocStar upgrade. Individually, there were 2 contracts awarded. Neither one were over 25, but combined they were. So the information was presented to the board so that you could see the total value of the project that was being presented. But if you would prefer that we only,
But to clarify, that was still going to the same vendor.
no, there were 2 separate.
Two different vendors that were delivering the service under the.
I think from an information standpoint, it's helpful to understand what painting's going on or what things are going to be utilized within the school system. But in terms of whether or not we need to vote on each one of these as an action item or even have it presented, I think that's probably something we can discuss over time, is what makes sense so that we as a body stay informed, but we're not bogging things down unnecessarily.
Right, I mean, the only cautionary item that I would throw in there is that since it's not, you don't typically split your contracts across multiple bids, so you wouldn't want, if it becomes more of a habit, you wouldn't want them structuring bids to fall under the 25,000, so it wouldn't come to the board for approval.
Right.
So doing this like this today, I think, was good because it's not, even though it's below the threshold, it's not something that typically happens where you award, pieces of a contract and one RFP out to multiple respondees. So didn't really give you an answer, but I mean, at least.
No, I mean, this is as we were going through this, I just had that particular question, so I think it's been answered. Thanks.
All right. Does anyone have any other questions on painting?
No.
Do you want us to retract this agenda item?
Oh, no, I want this agenda item to go forward. I want to be able to move money to projects as the money is available and moving forward. I mean, that's the biggest thing, is recognize that during the summer, we do have a bit of a lag, and I want to make sure that you already allocate money for painting.
Correct.
We want you to be fully informed of the money that we're spending and the projects that we're doing throughout the school, but I don't want to be held up on that process as we're waiting to come back before the board to seek approval for contracts that fall under the threshold required by Comar.
Now, if we did, if it was a project with multiple awards and some of them were under 25 and some were over, would you just want us to tell you about the ones that are over or the combined?
I would love this to be an ongoing conversation that we'll have after this, and we'll kind of work through. I just want to make sure that we are efficiently expending funds and we're not holding ourselves up. But I also want to make sure that the board is fully informed of exactly how we're spending every single dollar.
All right, so since it is on the agenda as an action item, we approve the agenda as it stands.
Yes.
We need to vote on this.
Yes.
As it is. Okay.
I move that the Board of Education approve ITB SMCPS 2018 M IEP contract awards for a total of $52,820 for interior and exterior painting at 4 schools as follows. Tito Contractors Incorporated for bid item A1 in the amount of $21,750. Bid items A2 and B1 to Colossal Contractors Incorporated for a total award of $22,400. And bid item B2 to D Project Incorporated in the amount of $8,670.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay.
This is Doran.
Doran.
You're getting guidance from. Look at how smooth that was, Mr. Whitten. She had this all handled.
With his help.
Thanks.
Let's see. I see what he's talking about. It's very different over here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening.
The SMCPS Purchasing Office requested sealed bids from experienced and qualified vendors to supply and deliver fresh vegetables and fruits to support the National School Lunch Program. The contract term is July 1st, 2017 to June 30th, 2018, with option to renew through June 30th, 2022. But the funding source is the Food Service Fund. 2 sealed bids were received for opening bid on June 15th, 2017 at 2 p.m. The contract awarded to Bowie Produce Company of Landover, Maryland. The total bid was $1,456.25. Prices were based on usage and will vary with meal plans. In addition to purchasing the fresh produce from the vendor, we also use our commodity entitlement money through a program of DoD Fresh through the USDA. The procurement method was an invitation for bid in accordance with the board policies and regulations and was posted on eMaryland Marketplace and the SMCPS Purchasing Office bid board for 2 weeks. And our recommendation is that the Board of Education approve this agenda item as presented.
Kathy?
No questions.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
I have a question. Okay, so when you go to these people, let's say if the apple slices are going really well, are you able to go back and say, I would like, 10 more cases, or are you basically stuck at whatever you've ordered?
No, the usage that we give them is based off of last year. So if we increase, our usage of that item, they will accommodate us. It's just a basic for their pricing structure, how much we're going to use at what price they give it to us.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right. Anything else? Then may I have a motion for this recommended action item?
I'll move that the board approve the contract award of ITB SMCPS 2018 FNS-FP to Bowie Produce Company to provide fresh produce on an as-needed basis at the estimated cost of $148,656.25 per fiscal year throughout the duration of the contract. which can be valid through June 30th, 2022.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Doran. That was great.
All right.
Like a 5-minute comfort break.
Yes, we would like, we're going to take a 5-minute break.
So that Ms. Fowler can come up and make sure everything's ready and we can actually practice the clicking. Okay.
Good.
We hope we have visuals.
You're gonna bring the paint, your. Without a chair. Or a table. I thought we were gonna have a lower table.
We can, these pieces can be modified to have a seat or whatever. What we're gonna end up doing is they're all gonna be modular, so you can push them together and have 2 tables, you can have the podium, it'll be whatever you want.
Oh, there it is.
Like, when we do like the budget stuff.
Yeah.
Gotta find it.
It'll, That's right.
The assistant principal.
Oh, the Queen of Leonardtown?
yes,
The Queen of Leonardtown, yes.
yes.
We were the princesses.
She's ignoring us.
Active listening.
You said the last
we
time the
back?
school task force came forth, you were the principal and we were your assistant principal. And then Miss Bailey said the Queen
You mean the Queen?
of Leonardtown.
Queen of Leonardtown? Oh, you think I'm gonna forget that? No. 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 All right, we don't have Sandra, but we're good, I guess. All right, we're back in at 7:58. I'm gonna write that down in case she needs to know. All right, Ms. Bachner, Mrs. Fowler, tell us what's happening with our middle school task force.
Well, we are concluding our work with the middle school task force. And so we're here last year at this time. We came, and Roma even remembers that. We came and kind of shared where we were halfway through. It's a 2-year process. And tonight we're going to share with you the conclusion of that process and talk about next steps. The purpose of this is to provide you, or the purpose of the middle school task force is just to reflect on the current research and best practices of what we're doing in middle school, because we shouldn't always rely on what we've done. We should reflect and look every so often to make sure and ensure what we're doing is research-based. And to give us guidance of what to do later. So tonight, unlike many things we've heard before, which were action items to spend money, we're not doing that. This is kind of like a wish list. So to refer to as we're planning future budgets for middle schools, what should we look at that has been researched and vetted through this committee as recommendations? We should look at that as we're thinking about the future for St. Mary's County. And it's also to determine if what we're currently doing needs any revision, or it's still grounded in that research that we initiated those first things with. The background, we were talking about this background. In 2007, the first superintendent's task force for middle school was established, and it was at that time chaired by Mr. Scott Smith and Ms. Jill Mills. At that time, Dr. Martirano, I believe, is the one who tasked the task force, and they were looking at Maryland state assessment data at that time, and they wanted to also take the book study breaking ranks in the middle school and then to give a prioritized list, just like we're going to give you tonight, of recommendations that task force used to help with budgets between 2007 and reflections of what we do in middle school with scheduling and everything else to present day. Although many of the recommendations are currently in place, some were never funded, some were never utilized, some never came to fruition for a variety of reasons. But again, I know as a former middle school principal, I used that document, I at least pulled it out twice a year and just went through it and made sure that, we were looking at that document for guidance as we were making decisions within the building, and then meeting with other principals and things like that to make those decisions between those times. And in 2007, if you took the total of the cost of the recommendations, it was 1.3 million. But again, that was not, all those initiatives were not funded, but some of them were. So the task force, is that you? Sorry.
Jumping in. So the task force reconvened in the fall of 2015 and co-chaired by Dr. Marr and Ms. Bachner. They sent out a middle school task force survey for input from all the staff, and we ended up with 44 initial participants. The first meeting was held October 2015, and then as you can see throughout the dates, the committees and subcommittees periodically met up to April 25th, 2017. The following subcommittees were formed: the whole middle school child, social, emotional behavior, the professional development and curriculum resources, expanding opportunities for students, bring your own device, middle school, after school, athletics.
And that's what we presented to you last year. If you remember, at this time, those were the 5 subcommittees, and we shared out that work. And so we presented that to you last April 13th. Dr. Marr and I did that. And the following recommendations were made at that time, that we were going to do 2 pilots. One would be at Esperanza Middle School and one at Margaret Brent. And that's what we presented to you as a summary earlier this year. And we talked about exploratory time at Margaret Brent, and we talked about what Esperanza is doing with starting 7th graders and an accelerated language arts a world language class in 7th grade. We'll talk a little bit more about how that concluded in our next steps. And we had 2 additional subcommittees that kind of formed out of those 5 this year, and that's to continue to study the whole middle school student and continue to study ways to expand those opportunities, which would include the athletics piece. All schools were encouraged this year to explore bring your own device, choice programs in physical education and intramurals. What that meant was all of our middle schools have more than one PE teacher. So as you're having classes come in, we encourage PE teachers to kind of divide those kids and say, hey, I'd like to teach yoga this unit. I'd like to teach volleyball. I'd like to teach basketball. So kids maybe have some choices within our current program. Because choice came up a lot, if you remember our other presentation to give students. The research said that. Social skills curricular program, you've heard a lot about that with MTSS and responsive classrooms and things like that. So that was something we really looked at. We wanted all schools to look at how they can incorporate that, and just differentiated scheduling, how to use homeroom advisory, literacy lab, those kind of things. All schools this year, for the first time, did in 8th grade only a 45-minute social studies and science class, and we've gotten reports back that's been very beneficial. That was begun because a student gave us that recommendation that would have helped with the transition to high school. So that actually was a student idea that started maybe 3 or 4 years ago that we implemented and did find that it was has been very, very successful for students. And then we wanted, even though Miss Fowler did the exploratory at Margaret Brent this year, we wanted everybody to have the opportunity, if they just wanted to try that. And I believe, Dr. Denny, you have tried that once or twice? Once this year. So they went ahead and tried that once this year also, that what Ms. Fowler did.
And then reviewing, as Ms. Bachner said, I know you are familiar with some pieces. The Accelerated English and World Language pilot conducted by the Esperanza team selected 7th grade gifted talented population, and they took an accelerated English language arts 45-minute course and a 45-minute Spanish 1, which earned a high school credit. Now, they looked at the data which was gathered, and it showed comparable growth to both the ELA and Spanish 1. Now, moving on to the new school year, the now 8th grade GT students will take a 45-minute course of blended accelerated ELA, computer science course, algebra 1, and Spanish 2. Now, the cool, great, awesome thing about this is that at the end of the 2018 school year, the students would have completed 4 credits prior to entering the high school. Estimated cost, $195,000. Now, looking at the second pilot conducted by the Margaret Brent team, the exploratory time, which you may remember, provided students the opportunity to select from a variety of activities based upon personal interest. Exploratory time was scheduled once or twice each quarter, and the entire school community participated. The great thing that we found an advantage of this is community partnerships. We had people come from the community, come in and do demonstrations, and that was very, very effective. Our PTA joined forces, went out, they pushed out a lot out on our Facebook, got supplies, donations, so what started off kind of expensive really reduced once we put it out to the community, and they had a high interest in supporting. An event facilitator is required. You take 1,000 students and you're placing them, lots of Google documents, shifting around, getting the teachers organize the event that they choose. It's a lot of work, so it does require, I think, a paid position for it. Estimated cost of $4,400.
Then we had 2 subcommittees, and if you remember, we had many more subcommittees the first year, and we condensed them down. For example, the professional development, it did not make any sense to have that be a standalone committee because professional development is embedded in every single recommendation. So that committee actually kind of disbanded, and half of them went to one subcommittee and half of them went into the other subcommittee, but for the purpose, when they were on those subcommittees, to look at that subcommittee through the lens of professional development. So they still had that focus, but they were within a context. So they did that, and then we also dismantled didn't have the bring your own device as a standalone committee because we wanted all schools to try that. So we kind of moved that into the other. So they were, and the athletics also was not standalone. We put that into the expanded opportunities. So just to understand that we didn't drop off any subcommittees, they were just subsumed into others as we moved along. And so we had 2 subcommittees that met all year long in addition to the pilots that were happening, and the one was the whole middle school child. And they actually came up, and this is in the executive summary, really broken down. That's available to the entire public. And the first one is discipline, and looking at new research-based practices such as restorative justice, things like teen court, those kind of things, which are present in many of the middle schools. We just want to make them more uniform and give the people training for them to plan during the summer, be trained in the summer, and be ready to do that. Some of those, like teen court, also involve students being trained. So that involves, bringing some things into that. And if you looked at all the kind of action items, also informing parents of how this is going to work and bringing those into the mix was an important part of those recommendations. And then the second priority was social emotional learning. Even if kids aren't involved with the teen court and things like that, we need to start hopefully having some guided lessons, maybe in advisory time, either with whole groups, small group, things like that, and providing students or those teachers, those curriculum, little lesson plans, mini lessons that they could use with kids. So if something came, if we found that 6th graders, this might someday happen, that they're not coming organized or bringing their materials to class. We may just do a mini lesson on organization. I think I went back, sorry. There you go. We may do a mini lesson on organization, things in the mini, and everybody would have a uniform lesson. So that subgroup or priority was really just finding some curricular materials and writing those and then training those teachers and making it available. We don't want to give them extra planning to do, but we want everybody to have those ability to teach those things in our schools. And the estimated cost of that was $31,680. The last committee was expanded opportunities. This is our big ticket item. And it was interesting because I think a few board meetings ago, Miss Bailey alluded to the third priority here. And they did prioritize them in order of what the committee felt. So those are why the priorities are like that, is the subcommittee did make those priorities when looking at the subcommittee work. The first one's intramural sports. I think every one of us that's in middle school have wanted this for a long time because it really does make a difference for our students, both wellness and then for their passion for school and building that culture of school. So we want to provide middle school students. We have, Dr. Ripper has done a wonderful job in the last few years, and thank you for budgeting for what wasn't in place even 8 years ago. So intramural sports is relatively new to middle school. We would love to expand it though, and provide the opportunities for more and more kids. Because many schools, I know I was one of them, had waiting lists for the number of kids that want to participate, which is a great thing to do those. So intramural sports was the first priority. Did lots of surveys. Kind of, I love their this subcommittee's recommendation because they also did kind of peer mentoring with high school sports, where they have suggested that when we do intramurals, we don't align the seasons with the high school sports. So if we're going to do a football or a flag football for middle school intramurals, we do it that doesn't correlate with the high school football season. So the high school footballers can help our middle schoolers because they won't be in season. So I thought that was happening. So I just thought it was a great idea that I had never thought of before. Summer Academy, it's too bad Mr. Jaffers is not here. He loves the Summer Academy, and it just provides summer learning, both enrichment and remediation for students. And as our summer is longer, that is really something I think we all firmly believe in. And the third is the Middle School Academy. This was always important to me, but after being in this position this year and seeing what the Fairlead Academy does for our students, this even hits more home to me right now, that we offer a middle school academy to those students who are at risk earlier with the intention of getting them back into the school. That was the intention. They wouldn't stay there. They would stay there for the intervention they need with the hopes that they would return to their school and especially their comprehensive high school for 4 years when they return to that. So that was the hope. And that, of course, is the big ticket item. That was all based on generous estimates that we just kind of looked at Fairlead, and that does not include any facility. That, you know, if we'd have to do that, we didn't. We figured if we were going to go down that road, there'd be a lot more investigation into the budget than those estimates that we gave. So we just suggested that everyone use this document as it was intended, as it was done in 2007 and has been used since the time, that it may be implemented, studied further, or tailored to meet specific school needs. And the estimated cost this time for implementing all the recommendations is $1.72 million. And so at this time, we'll entertain any questions.
So the accelerated English and world language pilot, I know that the recommendation is to next year 8th grade students will take a 45-minute course of blended accelerated English, computer science, algebra 1, honors class, and Spanish 2. So is this being offered to all students in all 4 middle schools?
It is not, because the pilot was only done in Esperanza this year, so we only have one cohort that would be in 8th grade next year.
So those 27 students are the ones that are going to move up. Actually, the 24, 3 are going to repeat Spanish 1. The 24 students are going to run this all the way through for 2 years.
Okay.
But then other middle school principals are, Ms. Fowler's one of them, exploring starting now a cohort with 7th grade. Because it's when you start that pilot, you have to know that you can support it for 2 years in a row, because you can't start 7th graders in Spanish 1 and then say, oh, I'm sorry, we don't have the staffing or the ability then to go Spanish 2. So when we started this with Ms. Mills at Esperanza this year as a pilot, she knew that she had to at least commit to really a 2-year pilot, even though we're ending the task force this year, because those students couldn't be kind of held in the lurch. But what we're recommending is we all believe it's a wonderful thing, and that we would encourage all schools, if they're able to with staffing, or to recommend for staffing for middle schools, so that they would all have at least one cohort that would do this program starting in 7th grade and then going to 8th grade.
And the cost, $195,000, is a staffing cost.
It does, because we would need more world language teachers. And when we talked to Ms. Tarr, she suggested we could do it if we hired 2 additional world language teachers, and they would be 0.5 at each.
I have a 0.5. I want a full-time.
Okay.
She would like.
I love the fact that you pointed this out, and I do appreciate the flexibility of the Esperanza staff to put this together. And ultimately, the way you're interacting with the kids and seeing their successes and their challenges as they're going through, because if we do get to the point where we request of the Board of Education to consider additional world language teachers to push into middle school, when somebody says, well, where's your research, where's your data, we can say, well, first of all, there's a great body of research, but then there's also very local information specifically, and let's go talk to some kids.
But I do want to put a shout out because the school system's already provided training for MTSS and for restorative justice. So like we all selected a team. I know Dr. Denny and I, we're going MTSS, multi-tier support system. And so they brought in a phenomenal presenter, and my team like just knocked it out. And it was just so we're already moving forward with that social support that we're looking at for research. That we're identifying that students need that. It's just not about academics anymore. It's about the whole child. So we're moving forward, and it's really nice to have it.
So yes, we would love this.
Every single school.
Well, that's what I guess when I was looking through the recommendations, I guess that's what I was under the impression that it was
prior
that it was.
recommendations of pilots, and that's just what
And what the intention is of all these people, and what they did in the spring with me is they came forward and they said, so you're building the 2018-19 budget as soon as the 17-18 is finished. Let me enlighten you as to how you should probably be thinking about talking about funding. And so this would be one of the, I would imagine you'll see this again.
I will tell you, when I was in elementary school, you started another language in second grade. So that you were well versed by the time you got to high school.
All the research still supports that.
Okay, go ahead.
We started in 6th grade. we weren't as advanced as you, as you go up in the northeastern part of Pennsylvania. All right, I have a couple things. I loved the exploratory time at Margaret Brent. A lot of the comments that Roma has made during the course of the year about, just kind of decompressing and not being stressed at school and just looking forward to that, to, just kind of do your own thing. And then touring during the whole one of the times, right? I mean, the kids and the diverse things that they were involved in, and it brought different groups of students together that wouldn't probably interact regardless during the school day. I am totally on board with the Middle School Academy. Just seeing the success that Fairlead 1 and 2 has, I think that there's still children that we're not getting, and not that it's too late by 9th grade, but it just might make it easier for them starting earlier. And then the whole discipline thing, just based on the way that the laws are written in the state of Maryland. Where I went to college, we had honor councils. Everything was done by the students. Very rarely did the dean get involved in anything. And it worked because it made you police yourself. Not that is going to be the most fabulous experience at the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade level, but it might. I think if you have another student who who might bring out the point that you're kind of acting like an idiot, or why are you doing this? You're messing it up for everyone. Might maybe just hit a little spark in some child rather than have a vice principal or someone tell them that same thing. So, very excited about those things. Mrs. Washington?
This is a wonderful report, and you have wonderful recommendations, and I like all of them. I really do. The exploratory time is great. I also like the discipline, the social, emotional learning. I think that is key. The instruction in academic behavior, academic perseverance, academic mindset, learning strategies, and social skills. Those are important, especially in the middle school years. So I think that one's good. The sports and the middle school academy. I think that's good for students at risk to identify them earlier in their school year. And some research has shown you need to identify them in elementary school as well. An elementary school academy for those students, and start early. The sooner you start with them, the better. But I like it also at the middle school academy as well. So great work. Thank you so much.
I really enjoyed coming over and looking at exploratory time. I was really struck by the students who kind of selected and moved together, especially finding that there are other people who like things, similar, have similar interests, I think really broadens an understanding of beyond yourself, and also gives you a lot more support systems in terms of knowing more people across, across the school, not just limited to your particular grade or the particular classes that you happen to be in. And the amount of energy and enthusiasm that we saw from the students was just incredible. And from the teachers. I mean, just watching them and listening to them was very informative and a lot of fun to watch. You talked about the restorative justice and the legislation that came down on the ban on early suspensions for early grade suspensions. That legislation specifically leans to restorative practices. And what we've heard is that while it's a recommendation in that legislation and not a mandate, that the expectation is that the legislature will be mandating us to use restorative practices as time goes on. Yeah. And so I think incorporating it now, getting the students accustomed to it, making it an embedded part of our practice, I think makes a lot of sense. And I'd rather be on the forward end of things because I think it really has great merit. I think it works. That's been demonstrated over and over again. It's a different way of looking at things. And hopefully it's something that the students will incorporate and just use beyond the beyond school. And I think there's great evidence to show that that will happen. And the Academy speaks to me greatly, and I would love for us to be able to move in that direction. And so I hope that we will be able to explore that further. So thanks for bringing all of this forward. I think it really demonstrates that the belief in continuing to work with middle school students and figuring out what works, because it is an ever-changing group, but there are just certain key elements that seem to pop up over and over and over again, and figuring out an effective way to reach each child. I think you all have done a great job in exploring that. So I hope we'll be able to bring this forward.
I really liked how, especially with the intramural sports and the summer academy, it helped bridge a gap between the middle and the high school, because I remember going from middle to high, it was a big jump just in terms of the size of the school, but then also being immersed into things like One Lunch, which was later on, but multiple clubs. It's good that students are having, the opportunity to form those groups in middle school so that they can carry on their interests, because a lot of times when you're in high school, you're just starting to figure things out, especially because you're hit with so many of these options and these choices. So it's great that now middle schoolers are getting that choice that will lead on into their future years. And then additionally, I really liked the stress piece was the biggest thing for me. Middle school, I know you're not as stressed as in high school, but it reminds me so much of One Lunch, especially with the exploratory activities, that you just get that breather, and especially you get that time to just interact with students, because you have all these group works that you do throughout the school year, but that time to just explore your interests with people who you may not have known had those same interests is a great thing to have in the school. I appreciate it.
Choice and voice, right?
Yeah.
Choice and voice.
See,
We really believe that. You really believe that. That's great. What I like about this most is that all of the work that we've done, it's bottom up work. It's teachers and community partners and stakeholders and administrators and people in the building looking at where the challenges may be, where the opportunities may lie. It's bottom up. It's not top down. You're never gonna solve the solution from here. You're never gonna solve the problem from here. You're only gonna be able to really affect change from the bottom, and that's really what this is. So, nice job.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll look forward to your budget proposal.
It's, well, if you,
We kinda
if
have
you
it
can't
drafted.
see the writing on the wall, I'm looking at it, you know, that's, but I think that that's really important, that intentional work where you say, this isn't just something that a whole bunch of people came up with, this is, what are you doing?
Mouse just likes to hide. You wanted to.
You trying to help?
The Chesapeake Public Charter School was next.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Ta-da. Yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We are here to very quickly do the year in review, and then we'll spend some time talking about the changes that were made this year to move forward, be able to answer any questions that you have. I would like to recognize some members of the school staff and also their governance board. So we have in the back Jennifer Campbell, Karen Antonaccio Oliver, Mary Beth Nauman, Jessie Taylor, Catherine Grube is on her way, and I also want to thank Rob Springer for being here. He is our fiscal point of contact from the school system. So thank you, Mr. Springer. Okay, so Ms. Funya is just going to briefly go forward and review the year. Yep.
Okay, so just as a review of our mission, our vision, we definitely have that focus on the whole child, the creative aspect of the arts and the environment, diverse learning and community, and very much look at that big picture of the student and all of those social learning pieces as well. We do that in a variety of ways. It's embedded in our philosophy, a lot of project-based learning. Small class sizes is huge, 20-to-1 ratio. A lot of flexible groupings, integration, focus on both cultures, the arts, environment, a lot of community involvement, and a lot of that was pulled out of Ernest Blair's basic school. These are all the things that you know about us that make us different. We are non-graded. We have a narrative engaged report card standards. We keep a portfolio, a growth portfolio for our students, many multi-age opportunities. We do offer world language instruction. This year we'll have a Spanish and French teacher, which is awesome. Starting with exposure in those young ages and then moving into learning the language in middle school. We focus on nutrition and wellness in the whole child. Of course, we're starting August 9th, which is 2 weeks away. We have an elective period as well on our Fridays where our students have free choice. Students wear uniforms, and we believe that not all learning takes place between four walls, so we do a lot of extensive field study opportunities.
So quickly, just a recap of the history. The original charter was granted in 2006 by the then St. Mary's County Board of Education. Some of you were members at the time. It opened its doors in 2007. One additional class was added each year in 2008, 2009, 2010. The first enrollment in 2013 of 360 students at full enrollment. The charter was renewed in 2010 for 4 more years, and as you remember, then Delegate John Buchanan introduced some legislature in Maryland that would abate some of the taxes. The charter agreement was again renewed in 2014 for 5 years. The Alliance did receive a loan from the United States Department of Agriculture, and they were able to purchase the building at a price of $7,030,000. The Alliance has contracted with Ritter Norton Architects to develop the master plan, and then the growth began with the addition of a third first grade class of 20 students this school year that we are just finishing. So we had many work sessions with the Board of Ed, St. Mary's County Public Schools, and also with the Alliance. Those are the dates that those happened. On November the 9th, the Board of Ed approved the first amendment to the charter agreement, and that included expansion, increased enrollment, and also the weighted lottery. And Ms. Funya will tell you a little bit about the demographics from this year, and then we also have demographics for you for the coming year.
Sure. So I think that our goal has always been to mirror the average of county demographics as a whole. Our attendance is great. About 8% of our students carry IEPs. About 5 carry 504s. This year we were at that 7.6, and that's what triggered our request to waive the lottery for the farm students. And then about a 27% minority rate. So our admissions process starts in December. That's when we open it up. Actually, I should back that up. Our admission process really starts all year because we're constantly kind of doing that outreach and getting the word out to families that we exist and this is who we are and this is how you can apply to our school. No, it's not a private school, it's a public school. We kind of go through that process continually all year. But the open enrollment process starts in December. And during that month, we accept the applications. Everybody's assigned a code. It's a blind lottery that takes place in January by Judge Benford. Everybody is put on a ranking or a wait list. Everybody is pulled and then given a number. This year, we had 38 spaces available in kindergarten and 24 spaces available in that new first grade class. So we bumped up to 380 students in this school year. And we had 437 on the wait list. And then every year we dump that wait list and start over once we pull a new audit.
So their human resources staffing, which is a component and a requirement by law. The staff are all highly qualified and certified St. Mary's County Public School employees. They are credentialed in their content. That's all been verified by our HR department. There is a list of their staffing pattern that you've seen in the past, and that is for this current year. Their staff are evaluated the same way all other staff are evaluated. There is an exception I want to point out. Ms. Funya is evaluated as all of our principals are evaluated, but also in the spirit of the law, I sit and meet with the Charter School Alliance chairperson for 2 hours, and they bring forth information that they would like to have included. So they have their own process that they use, and then we have to have a trusting enough relationship that I can embed that into her evaluation. But it's all in code and compliance with the law. So academic standards.
So as you know, we're required to have the same accountability, levels of accountability. We're responsible for taking any state mandated test, whether it's PARC or WISA or whatever comes down the line. We're responsible for that as well. Some of the predictor data comes from assessments that we join in with the St. Mary's County Public School System, and some are CPCS developed assessments. So we're always keeping an eye on where are our kids at in relationship to those standards that we're required to teach. Okay.
So their current status for the year we just finished. Their human resources and staffing are all up to where they should be. Their academic achievement has been historically good. We do not have official PARC data to release at this time, but the projections are indicative of very high achievement. Their governance structure is doing very well. Their finances have gone well. Every recommendation that has been made has been met, and they do have an accountant on staff right now, which has been a very helpful thing. And then their facilities have all been up to code and met all the inspections. Information about PARC, information about the governing board. They have their 5013C. It's current. It is the alliance that holds the mortgage. They have a 5-year charter agreement, and they own the facility. Do you want to speak to the finance and where they are?
Sure. Every year our goal is to raise about $65,000, and that just helps to supplement what we do that's a little bit different and things that we need to put in place in order to staff the way we want to, et cetera, et cetera. This year we raised, right, as of when this presentation was first put together, $66,649. So we met that goal, exceeded it a little bit. We develop the BPA with Ms. McCourt every year, and that 2% overhead cost that's kept up here, that $65,000 kind of helps to offset that number. And then we are responsible as a governing board and a staff for determining how we're going to put the staffing together for each.
So here are some of the processes that have been put in place this year and will continue next year. There is a monthly meeting with the St. Mary's County Public School Supervisor of the county, Mr. Springer, myself, and Ms. Funya, and also the accountant from the school. So we meet monthly, we review accounts and reconciliations. All the procurement processes are followed as they should be. Their accounts are audited annually by ASCII and ASCII. Their activities account is reviewed annually by internal St. Mary's County Public School fiscal staff. Copies of the financial update are on file, and they've also been put on the website. Some of the things that the last year's audit recommended was to increase internal controls. All of those things have happened and the hiring of the accountant made that much easier to do. The projected end of the year Alliance budgetary balance was under $10,000, and it will roll over to the Chesapeake Public Charter School Fund balance for next year. About the facility, and then we'll get into next year.
Sure. We keep our facility current, updated. All our inspections are up to date. We own our facility, so that is the constant kind of learning process of all of the pieces that go into that. As you know, we got to learn. Our quarterly payment toward the escrow account is up to about $68,000 at this point, and we started renovating. So we started in April, and we anticipate we will be complete in mid-July, 2 weeks.
So just in summary, they are meeting all of the components. 16-17 is complete, and now moving forward to 17-18. Speak to the current enrollment and the demographic.
Sure. So, as you know, we waived our lottery this year. Our goal was to have a 3% increase in our pre-reduced meals population. We were able to achieve that. We right now are projecting 10.9%. 420 students. That's 40 additional students, but remember we're also lost 40, so it's bringing in 80 total. And that will include 3 classes, grades K1 and 2.
The outreach, we talked about that at one of the work sessions. There were open houses on the 1st and the 5th. I did go and monitor those. They were very well attended. You see some pictures from there. They had applications available in multiple languages. The Alliance representatives went to the Department of Social Services for outreach. Ms. Funya visited the pre-K PLC to talk with the teachers so that they made sure to know, since pre-K is targeting an at-risk population. There was collaboration with the Judy Center specialist and outreach at all the Title I schools as well as Head Start, and information was also available in the community.
Okay, so this is how it all shakes out. 2017, we had 80 incoming students. Okay, that was just kind of that from to 420. According to our policy, the first preference that's given is to staff children. We have 3 staff members coming into our building this year that have children and bringing their children with them. 22 of our kindergarten siblings coming into the 1st grade class, given that preference. This is actually a typo. It's 20 out of 80 invitations made to farms preference. We actually had anticipated when we first set up this whole 9-year projection, it would be 17 out of the 80 that would be invited in. But because once students are invited in, if they have a sibling, we have a spot and the sibling comes too. So that's what we want. It's actually working to our advantage. So it ended up being 20 total right now. And then 35, the remaining 35 invitations went to the general wait list. We often get the question of, well, how many people move out of your school in any given year? This year it's 15 that we're losing, and that's how we're losing them. To military moves, moved out of states, several, actually, one family going back to homeschooling, and then 2 are coming. A lot of times we see in middle school, our kids are ready for a bigger pool, and they want to jump. So we see that happen sometimes in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. This is just a general overview of how, so now that we're registering everybody and figuring out exactly what schools they're coming from, just thought that would be an interesting piece of information for you to have. This is how it all broke out for this year of what that looks like. So out of the 80, 26 came from a private pre-K, but the rest came from St. Mary's County Public Schools. Okay, and so this is what we crunch the numbers, and this is what it looks like for this year's demographic. We still are holding around 8%, 5% of students with IEPs and 504s. We made that jump to 10.9% is, and you've all, I think all been there, most of you have been there. So this is where the nurse's office was. We took out a couple of choice walls that the teachers actually had a hand in helping to get through and design. So it really opened up that space, and just looking at it from two different directions in that. So that's almost complete. We just need to get the painting done, and we're starting that space. It's a very simple restructuring. But the nurse's office is moving down to the main office area. Now, if you remember when you come into the front entrance of the building, there's lockers to the left and to the right. If you were to turn left, those are the lockers that you see in that picture, and that's the new door that leads you right into the nurse's office. You can also access it through the main office, but this way it's nice that kids for going home go in and out of there. And so you can just see, we put the viewing windows in there. There's those three spaces where she has her office, her treatment room, and any kind of quarantine area that she may need, as well as one of the bathrooms that was in the main office hallway. We turned around so it's more exclusive to the nurse. And then if you remember, as you walk back on the other side of the gym, this was the large space that we'll be moving art into. Gives him a little bit more space in there, spread out, which is great. But in addition to that, there were some offices behind that PAE had been renting from us, and they were done. So we went ahead and restructured those spaces back there as well. So it actually gives us another huge additional, what we call makerspace. And then there's three small class areas, actually 4 small student areas, and 1 conference room. So we're getting a little bit more out of it than we had initially planned. Great.
And I think the big point is that the renovations will be completed when students return. That's the question everybody has, and they are confident that they'll be ready. Great. So. Questions?
Oh, it's Rita's turn.
Oh, it's my turn. Okay. One of the things that you had pointed out at the beginning is the growth portfolio. I think that is a really good feature to have. Then the other thing too is I like the pictures, even though you say it's not very pretty. I'm amazed that you've gotten all of that done this quickly. Are we able to get another tour? When, I guess like in 2 weeks or so, or even after school starts, when everybody's settled. The next thing is I know with the art room, and some of those rooms that are kind of down lower, is there more than one doorway out? So like say if there was a fire or something, that there is more than one way to exit?
Yeah, depending on the number of students that can fit in any given space, the fire marshal expects you to have 2 egresses on 2 different corners of the room. So
Okay, okay. Because you can't really tell from the pictures, but that was one of my questions. And then I did like that you broke down about the school, where each of the students were coming from, because that was one of my concerns at the very beginning when we started, talking about different things, was that, especially Park Hall is so overpopulated, and, so you're getting quite a few students from there. So I think that's great. Give a little, not a lot of relief, but, just a little bit. And then the other thing, and this goes back to, because we had the meetings about the lottery and about the renovations and things like that. You said you met your goals for the farm students. What do you think helped in that success? What did you do as a group in order to reach out to these families that you think that really worked?
I think the Title I school principals were really helpful in that process. Just having the opportunity to meet with them and really kind of explain, this is how this all works. And so then they were better able to explain to families who may have come to them and said they were interested in this, what do you know? So kudos to them. They were very helpful in that process. I think that the outreach that the Alliance had done as well to the Department of Social Services, coming back with handfuls of part-time
is there anything, and maybe you haven't met together as a group, what you would change for next year for reaching out to families to let them know, whether it's farm families or other families, just let them know about your school?
Last year, if you remember, we could not publicly say that the lottery was going to be weighted until we came here. And thankfully, you guys were wonderful about saying, let's go ahead and do this today. I think we can start much earlier and have a more systematic approach to the outreach to families, maybe multiple times. I mean, it was approved in November. The outreach was happening in December. We'll be able to do a little sooner than that leading up to the lottery.
Well, and none of the Head Start children were eligible to go into kindergarten this year with this lottery, correct? Because they're earlier. So I think now that they've made that connection with Head Start, so some of those, so now some of those Head Start children and families I talked to this year are just in pre-K this year. Because Head Start's younger.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So they're going to have like a 2-year interaction with those families in Head Start as they move from Head Start into our pre-K programs before they can apply for the charter school.
I think your adjustment in transportation also has helped a little bit because that is often a concern. So, do people have access to the bus?
Okay, and those were really my questions. Thank you.
Mrs. Weaver, I'll work with Sandra's replacement to get a tour scheduled at your convenience.
Right. And you can wait if you've got a lot going on with the new school year starting and things like that. Just wait until you get all that going. And
Well, you'll be in on August 9th. We'll just kind of be still rolling around for the next 20 days. So
Yes.
we've got lots of time. And
There you have it.
So.
Well, you'll be rolling around.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Nope. That's it.
I'm just interested for the how many people applied for the lottery for this year? I mean, how many applications did you have since it was advertised that you were opening up new classes?
418 applications.
Okay, and that was how much? What was that over what you'd had in previous years?
Last year was 427. So
Okay.
we were kind of hovering in that.
Okay.
And then so 300 after all of the invitations were made, students were brought in. Some people do decline, so then we have 326 people left on the wait list currently. And people also still bring us applications, so we have them on the bottom of the list.
Right. And then my last question, I apologize, what schools in the southern end have a pre-K on that list? 'Cause, I mean, I know not every elementary school has a pre-K program.
They all do
Oh,
have
all
a pre-K.
everything down there. Okay.
But for Head Start,
Right.
Greenview Knolls, Green Holly.
Right, I know that, but like up north, not every elementary school has a pre-K
But right, that's true. But they all do have access. Like White Marsh and Mechanicsville,
Right,
their
okay,
class is a
exactly,
dent.
but I didn't know, so when I looked at the lottery results by school, whether like Lexington Park, I'm assuming has a pre-K program.
They do.
Carver, okay.
They do.
Park Hall, okay. Sorry, Mrs. Washington?
I think you're doing a marvelous job, and as I say, you are a model for the state of Maryland regarding charter schools. Your outreach is good. You met your goal to increase the number of students who qualify for free and reduced lunch. Your finances are in order. You have reached your goals. Your facilities are under renovation and will be finished before school opens. And the lottery system was updated in order to give students opportunities who qualify for free and reduced lunch. So thank you very much. I love visiting your school and look forward to the visit that you set up with the board members so we can see all your changes. Thank you.
Of your applications, I know we weighted the lottery, so how many of those applications were from individuals who would qualify for free and reduced meals?
So 93 families came to us and said they qualified for free and reduced meals, and 325 were not.
Okay.
So it's about 23% of families.
that's helpful to know because, I mean, at least, I mean, I think that really shows that the outreach that you did, it quantitatively shows how successful it was. And then of the private pre-K that you have up there, 26 students from private pre-K, how many private pre-Ks are represented there? Do you know?
We didn't list them out because there were so many, 1, 2,
Okay.
1, 2, but I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different private pre-Ks.
Okay. That's helpful to know. You know, because when you look at private pre-K and you see 26, it's sort of like,
Wow, yeah.
wow, where did, it looks weighted over in that direction. But given the number of spaces that you'll have in kindergarten, I think that's certainly understandable. So, thanks very much. You know, you guys are rolling on and doing well. So, thank you.
I just had a question regarding, it was regarding like the learning style at the school. It's a really unique way of engaging with the environment and things like that that students do. Have like you gotten feedback from students who go on to like different high schools about how, you know, their growth portfolios and things like that have affected them?
We do. We have a lot of alumni come back to us and talk to us about, you know, what are the things that they felt were very beneficial, what are things, we have an alumni reunion on a regular basis.
Oh, okay.
So they do. They come back and they tell us, these are all the things that were great. These are the things that we wish you'd have done differently. I think that the students, the one thing the students come back and say every time is that I know my teachers knew me and I knew my teachers cared. And so, and that's just the small school feel,
Yeah.
I think, that the teachers really have their thumb on the kids. And then, you know, as they've moved on to a bigger place, it's been kind of like, wow, you know, that was pretty special.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest compliment we have to our school.
Have they felt comfortable, you think, learning to advocate for themselves so that when they do go into that larger setting, that they're well prepared to be able to be their own best advocate and understand? Do they make the jump from that small class size and that personalized feeling to how do I establish that? How do I create that for myself with the teachers in and people in the larger school?
I think that's always a work in progress. I won't say that any of it is ideal, but that is one of the things that they can do in that small environment is know, especially with the not having the grades piece of it either, is like they really have to understand what they don't know and ask questions about it in order to figure out how to make progress for that standard. And so that's kind of embedded in that process. They a lot of times are ready to go. Like they want to go. They want to advocate for themselves. They're ready. You know, and we joke that, you know, by the time the second semester of 8th grade comes around, you know, they know better and they know everything, and then off they go.
That's partly an age thing.
It's totally an age thing, but they move into it comfortably. And because we do transition them into grades, you know, we kind of give them that overall little picture of, okay, here's what you're coming from, here's what you're going into, and this is what that means. 8 out of 10 on a test means 80% class B. You know, like just really helping them to navigate that process. How to use hack. What does that look like? You know, they're starting to really get an understanding of that. We really need them to tell us what they need. You know, that's another piece of the whole child is for them to take that portfolio piece and be able to articulate it back to their parent and say, this artifact shows growth because when you're first presented with this information, I was really unclear, but this shows how I've mastered that. And so I think that gives them a leg up on how to do that with any adult.
And that's very powerful. Thank you.
I just, hey, just before we finish though, like last year was a really collaborative time. We all came together. I'd like to really give a great deal of praise to you and the people with whom you work closely, to the governing board, to the Alliance, You know, you took as an initiative with the charter school to increase the representation of economically disadvantaged students. You worked absolutely toward that person, you know, the purpose. I mean, you had just under 100 people apply. That's amazing. To go from 7% to 10% in the first year, and then to have a really good plan for building that out until you have a representative school population. I just want to publicly say thank you very much for that. I think it's incredible work. And when you cite as one of the reasons why you were successful that the Title I principals were working together and talking about and having a better understanding of the mission of the charter school and then articulating that to their parents, I mean, that really says something about the community in which we're all working for kids. So just thank you. You and me both. May we all be seated in the same place.
Not this fall, but next.
Yes. Yep.
Alrighty then.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, does anyone have anything else? I have board member time. Our new agenda item. Does anyone have anything? I just would like to wish the Mrs. Hart, who is an 8th grade social studies teacher at Margaret Brent, I believe left this afternoon with a group of middle school students touring Italy.
With her husband,
With her
Mr.
husband,
Dan.
and
Dan's
I-
with them,
and
so.
some chaperones.
Yes. Yep.
So I wish them all safe travels, a glorious time, and good food and great weather.
I wonder if they're going to cross paths with Mr. Davis and as well.
You never know.
You never know.
You never know.
So, just to publicly say thank you to Sandra.
Again, thank you.
You will be missed.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, and with that, the next board meeting, Wednesday, July 14th, 9 a.m. Bright and early. That we are done.